Hi guys, so this is potentially the first of a number of videos I'm looking to do. If you've been following the blog recently, you'll know that I'm a big fan of the Battlefield in the Box series. I've been making terrain, probably scratch building terrain for the best part of 20 years, but you know, there reaches a time in your life where you just think, I've got better things to do with my time than cutting out bits of polystyrene and old cereal packets. So one of the things I really like about the Battlefield in the Box series is pretty much all the hard work's been done for you already by Gale 9. They've done the design, they've done the sculpt, and they've produced it in a pretty resilient resin. And they've even pre-painted it for you. Not perhaps to the finish you might want, but certainly a finish that is more than acceptable for the gaming table. So what I want to look at here really is how you can take the basic paint job that you'll get straight out of the box, and with a little bit of effort maybe enhance it into something with a higher level of finish. So first thing I've done here, as you can see, is I've given the whole piece an initial base coat, not over the entire colour, just with an airbrush over the main stonework, and trying to emphasise out, you know, some of the larger pieces of stone like these, the brickwork and the actual wall sections. So what I've done is I jetted through the airbrush a bit of the old Deneb stone, which I've thinned down. If you don't have this, don't worry about it. What you can also use, which is a remarkably similar colour, is the Citadel base colour Rakarth Flesh, or for that matter any stone colour. What I've been particularly doing this for is to do it as a sort of Gondorian ruin, so I'm intending to use it in my Middle Earth tables. So I mixed up some of the Deneb stone into a separate pot, thinned it down with a little bit of airbrush thinner. You don't have to use Vallejo, but I find it does work particularly well with the Citadel colours, particularly the higher pigments in the Foundation series. So I've gone over all of the initial stonework, left some of the primer and the original grey dry brush showing on the earth sections, and just tried to lift out the definition of the stones a bit more. What I'm then going to do after that is go over this with a highlight initially, a very pale highlight of white, just to help pull the edging out, and then I'm going to show you what a gouache wash will do. So I'll be back in a bit. Okay, so the dry brushing is done. I used a light grey and a white in the end, both from Citadel dry range. You don't have to use these, any acrylics will do. I just happen to have some of these kicking around. I didn't go particularly mad on it. All I did was I just used the white in particular just to pick out some of the edges and just to start building up a little bit of contrast and a sort of dusty finish along the main stonework and some of the bigger blocks. I've completely left the earth as it is, so you'll still see it being quite grey-black at the moment. The next stage now is to apply a gouache like this one. If you've never used one before, it is an artist's watercolour, a non-permanent watercolour, and that's the feature we're particularly looking for in using a gouache. Hopefully all will become clear once it's been applied and is dried out, and you can see how it'll how that non-permanence can be used to great effect on terrain. So I've mixed up a little onto a palette here, and all it needs at this stage is diluting down. You can't use it, well, you can use it raw, but it would produce a terrible effect. So ideally you want to water it down quite a lot. I'm using a large dry brush here. Any brush again will do. I'm just going really just for as much coverage as I possibly can. You see I'm using the whole of the palette just to get an idea of how much more I need to dilute the gouache down. It is incredibly high in pigment, so you can add quite a lot of water. And consistency you're looking for really is almost like a wash, something, yeah, a bit like that. So you'll see once you start to apply it, very quickly it goes straight for the detail. All the capillary action will pull that gouache into all of the cracks and crevices in the model. You don't have to be neat and tidy about it. You can quite literally slap this stuff in In fact, the more the merrier. What you really want to do is work it into every little corner, and the reason for that will become clear in the next stage. So what I'm going to do is carry on adding all of this over the entire base, all of the stonework and all of the earthworks, and then I will dry it with a hairdryer. You can just leave it to dry naturally, but it'll probably take you forever. Certainly a good few hours because of the high water content you're adding. So I'll use a hairdryer to speed all this up, and then I'll be back again to show you the final finish. Now that the gouache has had a chance to dry, you can see that all the water's evaporated and what it's left behind is just the pigment. And this is exactly what you want to get. The next stage now is we bring back a little bit of water. We're going to remove the gouache, leaving behind the pigment in the recesses. And this is where the non-permanence of the gouache comes in. So if you get a little cloth, moisten it, what you can start doing is removing that top surface just by very gently wiping. You can remove the gouache from the top, leaving behind all the paint underneath, and leaving, more importantly, all of the nice staining and dirt in the recesses of the stonework. So if you go over the whole model with this, you can go over the earthworks as well, go over the stone. You're not trying to be too abrasive. What you're looking to do is just remove that top layer of the pigment to create a shade and bring some of the colour back out from underneath. We'll re-enhance the colour in a bit once we finish doing this by using dry brushes again. But what you get very quickly is it starts to, as you see, bring out all of those rocks and stones again against a much more natural earthy background. So I'm going to continue doing this, wiping away the top surface of the gouache and leaving behind, hopefully, the colour of the stone. And then when that's done, we'll come back and we'll do another stage of dry brush. So after a bit of rubbing, the excess gouache has all been taken off now, and the natural stonework has all been exposed again, giving it a lot more contrast. So what we're going to do is bring back in the dry brushes again. This time I'm going to bring in Terminata stone because of the nice yellow tinge to it, which works very well with the Gondor, and the Praxetti white again, just to finish it off and really help pop the highlights. So I'm going to start with a very light dry brush, just working away on the edges just to bring some of that back. So I'm just going to pick up the edging again, not really trying to concentrate too much on anything other than those big stone areas, the big blocks. Pick the edges up, help brighten the colours, and just bring some of that back out. You don't have to be too neat about it. If you go onto the earthworks a bit, it doesn't really matter. You can either go back over those with pigment. Some of the coloration will change anyway from obviously the dust and stone fragments where these blocks have broken off. I'm not trying to be too heavy with it, just help pop those edges, bring the definition out a bit more, and increase the colour. So I'm going to carry on working away with that, and the white just to help the final appearance. The white, I'm going to go a lot lighter, really don't want to over exaggerate it. Just to help pick out the edges, give it a nice soft powdery finish, and hopefully, as you can see, you get a lot more contrast and a really nice look to the stonework. There we go. So I'm going to carry on working away with this, along with 2 other pieces I've got, and then I'll be back shortly with the finished result. So here we have the finished piece. You could go back and add a bit more pigment at this stage, which I may do just to help enhance some of the earthworks. What I'll probably do is add some grass tufts and possibly clumping static grasses just to help give it a bit more interest around the ruins. But hopefully what you can see here is, you know, for the minimal amount of input and effort, a bit of dry brushing and the use of the artist gouache, you can really enhance what the out of the box finish is. And as I said at the start, this is specifically done for a middle earth board, so I wanted to try and get some of the more sandstone and creamier colours into it rather than the sort of sci-fi stark gothic greys. And there are 2 more pieces I've been working on while I've been doing this, so I just slide this one out. I will show you the others. So this one here is a ruined corner piece of a tower. Again, these are all Battlefield in the Box series ones with a broken down statue. I'll just turn it around and you can see a bit more. And then the final piece is a fountain. Again with a collapsed column. This comes with the water already set in place. It's probably a bit brighter green than I'd like, but I'm not too bothered by it. I may look at ways to enhance it a little bit. Again, I may put some grasses in here just to soften some of the transitions. But overall, I like this piece. I think it's a very stylish piece, and it matches beautifully with the other components. Very good in the centre of the table. Hopefully you can see now why I really like these Battlefield in the Box pieces. Even as a terrain maker, it takes very little effort to take the out of the box finish and lift it to a completely different level. If I was to sit down and try and sculpt anything like this or build it from scratch, it would take me an awful lot of time. It would take me an awful lot of materials to get anywhere close to this kind of finish, and it certainly wouldn't be the kind of resiliency you get with these pieces. I mean, they are absolutely, solid resin and very durable. They look fantastic. When you take all of that into account, the time and effort that you would need to expend to create a piece like this, or any of these pieces, I really do think they represent great value for money. I certainly highly recommend them. I can see now why the series is very popular. Hopefully you found this useful. I'll make sure to include a list of the paints and materials in the show notes. Please feel free to drop me any comments or questions. And if you find this useful or not, then also let me know in the comments, and we'll look to maybe including or not a few more of these in the future. Have a great week.